I mean, that's a great win for the Heat.
Let's move on to our headline player now, which is Jaime Jaquez. 12 of 17 from the field, 26 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, of just a full stat sheet. But his game is beautiful. It really is a beautiful game. He has incredible footwork. He's sneaky great in the post. It's funny because we always think of a great NBA body as being like the prototypical. You're going to be skinny, you're going to be long, tall, long. He's kind of a wider body guy. He's not a typical prototypical guy. But what I love when you get players like this is when they know the advantages. We always focus again on the disadvantages of having a body like that. You might be a little bit slower. He uses his size really, really well. And he uses it well in large part because of his great footwork. But he also seems to have a knack for, okay, I'm not the quickest, but I can do this with he ducks in really well. When he cuts through, he gets the defender on his hip and then slows down to create space. He is such a advanced player for a guy that is coming into the NBA, and the confidence to be able, if you remember on opening night, they played through him on the very first game of the season. They went to him in the clutch and he delivered. It just shows you that they have trust in him. Last night, he was a guy they were playing through in the clutch, and he delivered once again.
Did. And I loved it. It's funny. We didn't even discuss this before the show, but you took a thought I had about him literally right out of my mind, which is the physical profile. He kind of reminds me because he is thicker. He's thicker. He's got a wider back. His legs are thicker. Like you're 100% right.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds me, and he's the guy I'm going to mention is a little bit taller than him, like a Gordon Hayward type of body, right? Wider thighs. Again, Hayward wasn't going to blow by you, but at his best, he really knew how to use his body, absolutely utilized and mastered the spin move, which was always my favorite move as a ball handler. And for a guy that's like strong and wide shouldered and stuff, if you can get really good at driving one direction or the other and then spinning back tight, where that player is now like on your back and you get them there through the spin, it is really tough to deal with. Like he's not a guy that's going to cross you up, bang, bang, change directions twice and get you leaning one way and go the other. Maybe a little bit of that, but for the most part, it's straight line dribble drive. He's going to do one crossover, go, and then just get into you and finish with contact, or he's going to spin back once you've recovered. And he uses that size and that strength and the wide shoulder. He uses that to his advantage. And I thought last night he did it as well as I've seen him do it all year. He doesn't usually take that many shots. The guys being out contributed to that. He took 17 shots. In fact, you'd have to go back, Adam. I'm looking. He's taken 17 shots. The last time he did that was November 24th. So, he's had double digits a bunch of times, but 17 shots last night was a lot for him because of guys being out there, ran their offense to him. He got it going and they let him go. And during that stretch we were talking about with Kevin Love and Jaquez was the other guy, he was ISOing like from, whoever was in front of him and just going. Had a nice left-handed finish on a layup, had a nice right-handed drive where he got in and got contact and finished over him. Very impressed with the fact that you can't speed him up. He plays at his pace. He reads what he wants. He doesn't take the ball to bad areas of the floor, which is unusual for a guy that's young. Right?
I love that.
He just doesn't do that. You don't see him jammed up. He's never in that position. And you want to make things happen when you're young, man. He's rookie, getting in the league. You just want to like go. He's just never like that. Everything is calculated. He's like knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's going to work you to get there. Not much you can do about it. So we're obviously both big fans. And I thought last night, if you're a Jaime Jaquez fan, last night was like the one to watch because I thought he was sensational the entire game with everything that he did in the way that he controlled that game.
What I love about it is he took 2 3-pointers. In fact, he only took 3 shots that were 17 feet or out. The rest of them were attacks to the basket. He's very good in the zone right now that I think is the market inefficiency, which is like 8 feet. You think about those 8-footers. Everybody wants to protect the rim. They're giving up the mid-range, but if you settle for a 17, 18-footer, okay, that's not a good shot for most players, including Jaime Jaquez. But instead, he keeps going till he gets to the rim, and if not, then he's in the 7-foot zone where he can spin around and shoot the jumper, and he's so comfortable with that. And that shot, I think, is technically a mid-range shot, but those aren't the same. Those are a little more valuable because, one, you're near the basket, so if you miss, there's an extra offensive rebounder around the hoop. And then the last part I have on him, when we just start to talk about, okay, not just this game, but how good can this guy be going forward? His first step to me is still really slow in a way that I think is going to get a lot faster. And his footwork is elite. His sense, you were talking about not getting trapped, not getting in bad spots of the court. That's instinct to me. That's like just great feel for the game and where not to put yourself. He has those things, and I don't know that he's ever going to be De'Aaron Fox, but I do think there's going to be a steep incline in his first step athleticism that's going to make him even more deadly.
Completely agree with that. And I think, the 3-point shooting, I think, is something he's going to continue to work on. He's 5 for his last 31. He doesn't take a lot of them. It's clearly not a shot that he's super comfortable with from that distance or that range. You're a wing in the NBA. You're 6'6". You're going to have to add that. That's going to have to be something that he gets more comfortable with. And if it's not off the dribble for a while, if ever, that's okay, because there's enough opportunities with Jimmy Butler on the floor, with Bam on the floor, right? There's enough opportunities to get catch and shoots. Like, he doesn't really hunt that at all. His game is, he's got other comfort zones, and he finds himself there all the time. I do think it's something that could be important for him if he wants to hit his ceiling, where he becomes a legitimate threat, or maybe he's taking 3 or 4 of those a game and shooting a good percentage. I think that can come, because there's no reason. He goes to the line, you watch him, his stroke is perfectly fine. The mechanics are there. The strength is there. He's not going to have an issue. It's more, that's just not something he's comfortable doing right now. And he's so good at the other stuff and getting where he wants it, he doesn't need to yet. But I do think that's the next evolution. Being quicker with his his catch and triple threat and jab step game, and going on guys, and then being able to be more comfortable to be able to flare out and spot up at the 3 and wait and catch and not have to take it back into the teeth of the defense. Those are the 2 things that you're going to look at and say, let's see where he's at in a couple years.
On the point of the flare and the 3, he is very good at this. And the Miami Heat as a team, including last night, Delon Wright was good at this, attacking the closeouts on the move. So, as a shooter, you're getting ready, you're getting your feet set to be able to catch and shoot, but you can read when you're not going to have enough time. And rather than catch and then go, the Heat do it. The Spurs used to do this really well back in the Tony Parker era and the Ginobili era, catching it, like running into the catch, so that as the defender's closing out, you're beating him off the dribble. He does a great job of this. And to your point, you're going to get more opportunities of that the better you become at hitting that flare screen and hitting that 3-point shot. Let me give you, here's another 2 interesting things. And this comes from a profile on ringer.com from my guy, Wes Goldberg, who I do Locked On NBA on Fridays with. He had a profile on Jaime Jaquez, and he was talking to him about how he got to be such a fundamentally sound player. He said, I had traders later in my career, but from the start in my base, I would literally just try to watch YouTube for hours and hours. And then when I was done, I'd go to the park and I would try everything I saw. I love that story just because I feel like there is a type of player that's how they develop. It's almost like watching instructional videos and then going out. Guys that are studying players, and you can see that. I mean, you can see the Kobe in his footwork. You can see the Paul Pierce and the different things. And then the second one I love comes from his AAU coach, who was talking about, I mean, all these guys that are freshmen now, they came up in the high school AAU circuit during COVID, which is, could really break guys or send them 2 ways. He had this quote. He said, some players, the pandemic was suited for them. He would stay in the gym all day and really hone his skills at the best time during the pandemic. And I love it. I think the pandemic screwed up a lot of development for guys that thought development was playing games. And that's an important part of development. But there's the Jaime Jaquez's of the world. The one thing you could do during the pandemic as a high schooler is go to an empty gym and work on your footwork. And you could tell this guy had extra reps doing that. And I just thought that was a really interesting detail that gives you some insight into who he is and how he approaches his development.
Listen, you got to utilize what, the circumstances and take that as an opportunity to go work on your game. Look, I used the pandemic myself to improve my woodworking skills. I bought 4 different types of saws. I learned how to lay flooring, Adam. I learned what a miter saw was. Like, that's what I did for 4 months. I was
you first had to learn what a miter saw was, and now
I never used a miter saw. I didn't know what it was, man. Now look at me doing my quarter rounds. I'm doing, you name it. I'm getting it done out in that garage. Come in the house covered in sawdust. It was a great time in my life, Adam. Yeah. Listen, your point about watching guys and emulating them is I didn't really play organized basketball until I was 14 years old. And there was a player And one of the reasons that helped me because I could already shoot a basketball because I was big enough, strong enough, like with good mechanics. And I was watching the NBA and watching college basketball. Huge ACC fan, grew up in ACC country, huge Washington Bullet fan, and then became a Celtics fan when Bird came in the league. So I was emulating the shooting strokes of some of these guys before I ever really played on a team. But then there's this other player that specifically going into my senior year of high school changed my number to number 4 because of Jim Paxson, who was John's older brother. And if you don't know, just look up Jim Paxson. If you got younger people listen to this. And why did I want to be like Jim Paxson? There was no 3-point line in high school. I didn't get that till my junior year of college. So everything was really predicated on your cuts and off the ball stuff. And Jim Paxson was like a guy that would fit in great with what the Warriors do because he never stopped moving without the ball. And that's the guy I wanted to be. And it always became a big part of the way I played. I was always in great shape, and I was like going to run you into the ground and know that you were going to tire before I was. And I was going to run into something good for myself. And that's how Paxson played. So the same thing, like you get a guy like Jaquez, and that's how you do learn. You kind of watch people, you want to do that. And then do you have the obsessive work ethic to actually go incorporate that into your muscle memory? Not very many guys do, but it's a good place to start.
I love it, man. This Miami Heat team is so interesting. If you look at the standings right now, they are a couple games, actually, just 2 in the loss column out of the 4 seed. They're the 6 seed currently. It's a jumbled mess, 4 through 8 in the Eastern Conference, but they're surging. 8 of their last 10, won 4 in a row, and they did this last one that's shorthanded. They're going to be shorthanded, I think, for a little bit here as they get guys back both from suspension and from some injuries. But nonetheless, I think that it's not a coincidence that the Heat do this every year. I think Spoelstra knows there are these foundations you have to build that don't reap the benefits right away. You build a foundation early in the season, you might lose some games, but you'll pick up momentum as you start to add layers and layers and layers, and all of your guys toughen up and they kind of absorb the culture and absorb the identity. And look, the Miami Heat are right on schedule, and I'm watching them now and I'm thinking, my God, is this East going to be fun?
Yeah, listen, I'm gonna my last point on this because it kind of sums up what you just said. They are the one team in the Eastern Conference, the one team that, regardless of record, regardless of how it's gone to this point, if they show you a stretch of basketball post All-Star break where they're getting it together and they're executing and they're winning games, right? Like we're talking about the way that they're playing. Doesn't matter what the record is to that point. They're like the one team that you go, man, if they're playing right at the right time of the year, look out, because, who knows? We don't have to predict where this is all going to go yet. That's not, people want you to every day. That's not what we have to do. But I'm just telling you, you look at teams like Cleveland, the Bucks, the Knicks, like some of these other teams that we've been talking about that are trying to grab onto that second spot, like who's going to challenge the Celtics. Then you get the Heat playing like this at this time of the year, and you want to put any of those teams I just mentioned, those 3 teams in a best of 7 with the Miami Heat. I'm telling you right now, there's a lot of people, if the Heat are fully healthy, are going to pick Miami to beat any of those teams in a best of 7 if it started today. Yep. And that's what the Heat can do to you when they put together a stretch like this because of their track record and how well they're coached.
They're right on schedule.